Part 23. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 225. Human Voice. Yejing was stunned. It was a giant made entirely of sand. How could there be a human voice? He had already entered the battle state, but when he heard someone's voice, he immediately stopped and locked his eyes on the sand giant, looking from bottom to top. He only took a glance and saw a figure jumping down from the sand giant's head, smashing into the soft pit, splashing a sandstorm more than 2 meters high, and then a bald man with his clothes open and his chest spread out ran out of the sand pit, and rushed to Yejing in the blink of an eye. His eyes were dry and red, without any water stains, staring with bloodshot eyes, and before Yejing could react, he stretched out his hand and pressed on Yejing's shoulder, shaking him vigorously. "Where's the water? I clearly felt that there was water here. Did you drink it all? Spit it out for me. Or you can pee it out. What the hell is this?" Yejing's upper body was shaking, and he slapped the bald man's hands speechlessly. "What the hell are you talking about? Can't you see if there is water? Another person came here after sensing the water. This is the third person in this illusion. It seems that the temptation of water is still quite strong, and it can attract people from afar. I just don't know how many people are in this desert illusion. I see water." The bald man stared at Yejing's wet lips with his eyes, and he didn't care about anything and licked Yejing's lips. A hideous bald man rushed up to him, and Yejing was so scared that his face turned pale. He hurriedly pushed the bald man away with force. He was still in shock. He was almost defiled by a man, and this was his first kiss. How disgusting. I don't have water, but she does. Yejing patted the dust on his shoulders in annoyance, and pointed at the Chilugo girl in the distance behind him. Chilugo had already run several dozen meters, but when she looked back and saw that it was a person, she breathed a sigh of relief and quietly walked back. Her beautiful eyes slanted at the bald man with his shirt open, and she muttered, "Why are they all perverts? Aren't there any girls?" Yejing. Perverts, men who don't go shirtless in this temperature are perverts. Water. The bald man looked at Chilugo and was slightly stunned. Her water? What water? Holy water. Why does this sound so awkward? Yejing explained, she is a water practitioner who can turn water out of thin air. The water breath you sensed was all turned out by her. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. Practitioners of the spiritual element system are convenient and useful in various places. Unlike me, I have no attribute spiritual energy and have no use other than fighting. Water system. When the bald man heard that it was water system, his eyes, which were originally dull and dry, suddenly brightened up, and his tall and mighty figure flashed, and he rushed towards Chilugo. Under Chilugo's slightly frightened expression, there was a muffled bang, and the bald man knelt directly on the ground. The bald man seemed to change his face. In a blink of an eye, his face was covered with tears, and his tone was crying and shouting, and he was just short of hugging Chilugo's legs. "Auntie! I'm dying of thirst, please give me some water. A drop of water is a spring of gratitude. I am willing to serve you like a cow and a horse. Is it so exaggerated?" Yejing stared at the bald man who knelt on the ground and cried bitterly, with a look of shock on his face. This was the first time he saw such a shameless person. He knelt down for some water. This man's figure was wasted. Shameful, so shameful. This. Chilugo had never thought that the bald man was so single. They were all students who took the exam together. She didn't say that she didn't want to give him water. She just wanted to mock him subconsciously. But who would have thought that the bald man would kneel in front of her, which made her feel at a loss. Her face was slightly red, and she didn't know what to do. "You, stand up first, and I'll give it to you." Chilugo stuttered, and raised her hand to condense a stream of water, which sprinkled on the top of the bald man's head like a shower. "Thank you, Aunt." The bald man was overjoyed, and stretched out his strong hand to touch the bald man's head. The unprecedented coolness and pleasure made him almost cry. Finally, he drank water. "Damn Demon Academy, I will tear you down later. I'm not your aunt," Killuo whispered to herself, and gave Yejing, who was watching the show, a look of hurry up and deal with it. Yejing shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he couldn't stop his grandson from being his aunt, so he was better off eating melons. Killuo glared at Yejing and turned the water flow, silently saying that if you don't deal with it, I won't give you water. This is like pinching the lifeline. Yejing walked over helplessly, bent down, and patted the bald man's shoulder, and asked, "Is that sand giant yours?" The bald man nodded while drinking water. "Yes, I am a sand practitioner, belonging to the mutant attribute of the Earth system, and the sand giant is what I made for traveling." "Can you stand up and talk first?" Yejing had a black line on his face. He didn't like to look up and talk to his peers, but he didn't like to look down and talk to his peers. "What do you care about me? I like to kneel." The bald man glanced at Yejing and said confidently, as if what he did was not a shameful thing at all. "Okay, awesome." Yejing gave him a thumbs up. It was the first time he saw someone so shameless. He was 10,000 times more shameless than Zhao Danggong, whom he had fought some time ago. However, speaking of this, Yejing looked up at the sand giant who was waiting on the spot, and felt very uncomfortable. In the desert illusion, he met two people. One was a water practitioner who could solve the water problem endlessly, and the other was a sand practitioner who fought on the land and had constant sand. What about me? Have I become a thug? How are the roles assigned? Yejing and Killuo watched the bald man kneel on the ground and drink enough water. After showing a satisfied smile, he stood up. "Are you done?" "It's done." "Drink enough." "Drink enough." "It's okay to drink enough, but don't kneel down again later." Yejing patted the bald man's shoulder and asked, "I saw you coming from the direction of the sun. Is there anything unusual over there? If you want to cross the desert, you must go in the direction of the sun, but with the three of them gathered together, if there is any danger on the road, it must be ahead." The bald man shook his head blankly. "I didn't find anything unusual, I just walked over very steadily." Yejing said in disbelief, "Didn't see anything." The bald man thought for a while. "Does the pyramid count?" "Of course the pyramid is an anomaly. Isn't it right? Isn't it normal to have pyramids in the desert? Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 226. Isn't it normal to have pyramids in the desert? Yejing was shocked by the sentence. He didn't know if he was really so shocked that his hair fell out, or if he was just pretending to be stupid. Yes, it's common sense that there are pyramids in the desert, but there shouldn't be pyramids in the desert fantasy. Isn't it obvious that there is something wrong? Isn't it obvious that you have to go to the pyramids even though there is something wrong with them? Yejing held his forehead and said helplessly, "Then you lead the way, let's go to the pyramid first, there may be the secret of breaking the level." "Why should I listen to you?" The bald man looked at Yejing with disdain and said viciously. After turning his head, he turned around and licked his dog-legged smile and nodded to Qi. "Sister, what do you say, are you going or not?" This. Qi seemed to have encountered such a powerful dog for the first time. She was a little overwhelmed. For a while, she was a little unresponsive. She coughed twice and pretended to be indifferent. "Then let's go and have a look." She rubbed her exposed arms silently, which were covered with goosebumps. She thought that maybe Yejing was easier to deal with. She really couldn't deal with a dog like the bald man. The bald man waved his hand, and the desert giant more than 10 meters tall bent down, lowered his head without facial features, and stopped quietly in front of the three people. He flipped over and sat on the head of the desert giant, waving at Kilo. "It's so tiring to walk by yourself, come up and sit." Kilo nodded. She didn't know how far she had to go next, so it was good to have a mount. Moreover, she had been walking barefoot in this desert. Although she used her breath to cool down and moisten herself, the sand was still a bit rubbing. After Kilo sat on the head of the desert giant, her sitting posture was always very strange. One leg was drooping in the air, while the other leg was bent, and her bare feet were on the head of the desert giant. I don't know if it was comfortable to sit like this or what. Yejing was about to jump onto the head of the desert giant with Kilo, but saw that the desert giant had already raised his head and stood up. He couldn't help but glared at the bald man. "What do you mean?" The bald man looked down at Yejing and said lazily, "I have no obligation to take you with me. Follow me by yourself." After that, he gave an order to the desert giant and turned his head to run towards the direction of the sun. "It's really hateful." Yejing stared at the desert giant that was flying away with dust in his mouth, and he was so angry that his teeth were itching. He didn't care whether the bald man agreed or not. He just tightened his legs, jumped up, and turned over to stand on the shoulders of the desert giant. The feeling at a high place is very different from that at a low place. When Yejing was walking in the desert at a low place, he only felt pain and fatigue, but when he was standing at a high place, there was a different scenery, thousands of miles of desert sand, thousands of miles of sand dunes, a different scenery. The previous water source was not far from the location of the pyramid, otherwise the bald man would not have found it so quickly. The desert giant was running, and after climbing over several towering sand dunes, Yejing saw the pyramids that the bald man mentioned. Across the sand dunes, rows of dozens of huge pyramids more than 30 meters high appeared in Yejing's sight, completely blocking the road ahead of them. Yejing stared with disbelief. "Is this the pyramid you said is normal?" The bald man sat cross-legged on the head of the desert giant like an old farmer, and said as a matter of course, "Yes, in the desert, what is the difference between a pyramid and a group of pyramids? Aren't they all normal? Oh my goodness! Do we have to see we have abnormalities engraved on the pyramids to know that there is a problem? Please, I really don't want such teammates." He didn't know how the Demon Academy was allocated in the illusion. It was obviously a desert illusion, but it was divided into water and sand practitioners who were like cheats. This was originally good, and he could just mess around. However, the attributes were divided well, but this IQ really made him worried, for fear that the pig teammates would do bad things. The three of them sat on the desert giant and arrived in front of the pyramids in a blink of an eye. Yejing jumped down first, and the other two followed closely. Yejing walked to the pyramid in the center, pointed at the font on the pyramid, and said expressionlessly, "Didn't you see the words written on the top before?" The bald man said calmly, "I saw it, but I can't read and I don't know it." Yejing. Yejing turned his head and glanced at Chi-Luo, and found that Chi-Luo had covered her face, and faintly heard a low-pitched laugh. There are still people who can't read in this era? The practitioners from the most remote cities, or even small mountain villages, should be able to read. Otherwise, how did you practice? Haha, not necessarily, maybe it was from the Kilin Mountains, ha ha ha. There are 2 rows of big characters engraved on the pyramid, just for them to see. 1. At least 3 people go in. 2. At least 2 people come out. That's it? It's such a simple requirement. 3 people go in, referring to the 3 of them. At least 2 people must come out. This sentence gave Yejing a bad feeling. At least 2 people must come out, which means that there is a possibility that one person will be disqualified. It seems that we need to be more careful. Yejing said cautiously, "Should we wait and see if there will be other people coming in together?" These 2 sentences also revealed a message: at least 3 people go in, that is, there will be a 4th person, or even a fifth person in this desert fantasy. There is no need to rush now, it is best to have more people, and it is best to go in together. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Chi Luo walking past him with a scent of flowers, and walked into the pyramid first, and said in a nonchalant tone, "What are you afraid of? There are 3 people, is there still danger? I don't want to stay in this broken place anymore." She walked into the hollow pyramid as if she was walking into her own home, and walked in carelessly and openly, without worrying about any danger inside. "Wait, I'll go too." Then, the bald man also walked towards the dark door of the pyramid. "Don't you have a sense of crisis?" Yejing sighed helplessly and followed him in. The moment he stepped into the pyramid, a cool and damp feeling came from the inside, and the cold wind whistled, blowing the torches hanging on the walls on both sides tottering. Green and black moss and spider webs hung in the corners of the walls, and a thick layer of dust covered the ground, causing Chi Luo to frown and silently put on her shoes. Inside the pyramid, there was only a road full of torches, guiding them forward. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 227. The dim torchlight is not enough to illuminate the entire interior of the pyramid. The surrounding corners are still in darkness, and mechanisms will pop up from nowhere. Yejing walked cautiously, taking 1 step at a time and taking 3 steps for fear of triggering the mechanism, while Chi Luo and the bald man strode forward without any warning at all. There are many legends about the pyramids, including countless killing mechanisms, such as flying arrows, rolling stones, ceiling drops, ground collapse, spikes and other killing mechanisms that are difficult to guard against. In addition to the killing mechanism, there are also undead zombies such as mummies and pharaohs, which are also a major feature of the pyramid. From nowhere, a large number of mummies wrapped in white foot wraps will appear and rush out, and they cannot be killed. Can you two stop being so careless? After walking in the dim corridor for 5 or 6 minutes, Yejing finally couldn't help but say it out. He was the only one among the 3 who was cautious, making him look like an idiot. Chi Luo rolled her eyes. "I told you not to be afraid, it's just an illusion. Didn't you see any movement after walking hundreds of meters? Where is the mechanism? There is none at all." As she spoke, she stretched out her legs and kicked the wall next to her very naughtily. "See, there's nothing wrong with it. I guess it's all over once you walk through this pyramid." Just when her foot hit the wall, she suddenly paused, looked at the place she kicked with some confusion, and muttered to herself in confusion, "Why does it feel like the kick got stuck?" Stuck. Hearing this, Yejing's expression changed and he hurriedly shouted, "Stop kicking." But it was too late. Suddenly, he felt as if he was stepping on the clouds. He had no real feeling. When he looked down, he couldn't help but look horrified. The original stone bricks under his feet had been removed at some point, and it was extremely dark below. Abyss. Chi Luo blinked her eyes cutely and said innocently, "I didn't know that the mechanisms in this pyramid were kicked out with feet." The next second, 3 screams echoed throughout the pyramid. Ah! Fall. After an unknown amount of time, Yejing slowly regained consciousness and opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with darkness and he couldn't see his fingers. "Is everything okay?" Hey, Chi Luo, bald. Say something back. Hey. Suddenly there was a squeaking sound in her ears. Chi Luo woke up, rubbed her aching head, and replied, "It's okay. Bah. I'm fine too." Just when the 3 of them regained consciousness, the originally dark space suddenly became brighter, and torches burning with huge flames were lit in a circle, illuminating the entire hall. The empty bluestone hall was illuminated. In the front wall, there was a stone statue, a lion body more than 10 meters high, and a human face with 2 erect ears. Coming, coming. Yejing shouted in his heart, the legendary Sphinx of the Pyramid Executioner. Bah! What the hell am I thinking? Just when the 3 people's eyes were on the Sphinx, suddenly, the Sphinx's eyes like 2 gems emitted a dazzling red light and were activated. Human, accept the test. This is a stone statue. There is no movement of the lips, but the sound still spreads throughout the bluestone hall. The ruby-like eyes do not lower their eyes to look at them, but still stare straight ahead. After completing 3 levels of the test, I will send you out. If you fail the first level, I will send one person out, but it will just leave the illusion directly. As soon as these words came out, the faces of Yejing and the others changed slightly, and their expressions became serious. There were 3 people in the 3 levels. If they failed in one level, one person would be eliminated. This elimination refers to the qualification for admission to the Demon Academy. No one wants to be eliminated without even passing the Demon Academy exam. Even the bald man, who was a bit brainless, understood the seriousness of the problem and said with a serious face, "How about we smash it? Smash it? If you smash it, you will really be eliminated." Yejing and Qiluo looked at each other, nodded secretly, and made up their minds not to let the bald man interrupt. Just as the 2 of them took a deep breath and prepared to face the dangerous level, the Sphinx glanced red with red eyes and shot out a ray of light, and a semi-phantom red answer board appeared in mid-air. The first level, knowledge. After entering the practice, a rich knowledge reserve is the first step for you to survive. Please recite the periodic table of elements for 5 minutes. Yejing, dot. Qiluo, dot. Bald head. So simple. So simple. I can't read. The 3 of them said in unison. If you don't know how to read, shut up. I'll do it. Yejing walked forward with a confident look on his face. The periodic table of elements, haha, he will be fooled when he is 13 years old. Isn't this just a score question? He cleared his throat, opened his mouth and recited very fluently: hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, sulfur. Damn. Why are you beating me? Yejing had just recited 3 sentences when he was suddenly slapped on the back of his head, and he couldn't help but turn his head and glare. Qiluo waved her little hands, straightened out her underdeveloped chest, and stared back at Yejing. Who are you talking about? Yejing was ashamed. How could he ask this question? You are fierce, you are awesome, I admire you. However, he was still dissatisfied and said, why did you interrupt me? If you don't memorize it, it will be considered a failure. You will fail only if you memorize it. What a crap thing you are memorizing, I can't even understand it. Get out of the way, I'll do it. Qiluo pushed Yejing away and walked to the answer board above. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Come on if you want, there is only one periodic table in the world, can you be outdone? Yejing muttered in his heart, stepped aside, and watched Qiluo's performance quietly. However, when Qiluo opened her mouth, he was completely stunned. Qiluo pursed her rosy lips, and her voice was as crisp and pleasant as a lark. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, rain, thunder and lightning, time and space, ice, fire, sand, light, shadow, plant and call. In more than 30 seconds, all 51 elements were complete, catchy, and full of rhythm. Yejing's head was about to explode. After reciting, Qiluo glanced at the stunned Yejing and said contemptuously, this is the periodic table of elements. Look at what you are reciting. Have you ever been to school? This is the periodic table of elements. Yejing's eyes widened. This is the first time I heard that the periodic table is recited like this. It really broadened my horizons. Yes, this is the periodic table of elements on Blue Star, One of the must-reads for junior high school. A huge green circle appeared on the answer board hanging in the air. Correct. The first of the 3 levels is completely correct. Fortunately, Kilogo interrupted Yejing, otherwise, it would be really bad. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 228. Actually, there is nothing wrong with it. In this broken world, the periodic table of elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth is nothing. He has accepted this reality so much. He has encountered more extreme things than this, so he is no longer surprised. Yeah, that's right, this is the legendary periodic table. Yejing thought expressionlessly. The first level of the Sphinx passed without any danger. The translucent answer board hanging in the air seemed to be wiped by a blackboard eraser. All the words that appeared before were cleared, and in the blink of an eye, new fonts were replaced. Second level, trust. What is a classmate? Classmate equals comrade in arms, classmate equals partner, is the existence in this world that is worth your back in times of danger, between life and death. Choosing to trust the person behind you will keep you alive. When this row of fonts appeared on the answer board, before Yejing and others could figure out what the sentence meant, the eyes of the Sphinx embedded in the wall suddenly moved, and shot a deep red light towards the top of the bluestone hall. The crimson light shot straight into the ceiling above, and in an instant, 3 closed small spaces descended from above, isolating Yejing and the other 2. A completely closed space, thick iron walls, and a dark interior. Hey, 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 can you hear me? Yejing reached out and slapped the iron wall of the space, and the sound echoed, but he couldn't hear other people's responses. Is the sound also blocked? Yejing frowned, not understanding what they were asked to do. The prompt for the second level that he had seen before appeared in his mind, and he was confused. According to the answer board, the relationship between classmates in the Demon Academy is equivalent to comrades and partners, and they are trustworthy in battle. He can understand this. After all, in such a dangerous world, one cannot survive alone, and needs the existence of other people, and the relationship between classmates is a very close relationship. But the 3 of them are not classmates at all. They are not even acquaintances. He didn't even know the bald man's name. The 3 of them just happened to meet and formed a team. Let alone classmates, to be more precise, their relationship was that of strangers. Where does trust between strangers come from? Isn't this nonsense? Just when Yejing felt puzzled, a crimson template appeared in front of his eyes in the closed space. There were avatars of the 3 of them on the red template. Yejing Kiluo. Bald. These are 3 avatars, and under each avatar, there is a black font. Death. In addition to these, at the bottom of the red template, there are several rows of specially marked words. What does this mean? Yejing narrowed his eyes and put his eyes on the words at the bottom of the template and read them silently. 1. Select one of the avatars and click the word death below. Clicking it is considered a vote. After all 3 have voted, the judgment will be made. 2. When judging, if all 3 have 1 vote, it will be considered a pass. 3. If one person has 2 votes, the one with 2 votes will be eliminated. 4. If one person has 3 votes, the one with 1 vote will be eliminated. The time limit is 5 minutes, and the countdown begins. The more Yejing looked at it, the wider his eyes became, and his expression gradually changed from calm to unbelievable, and his heart was like a surging tide like waves. This. Is it so crazy? Yejing was confused by these lines of words. This kind of level should not appear in front of these 3 strangers. According to common sense, this level is very simple for 3 acquaintances. As long as everyone trusts others and votes for themselves, they can pass the level. It's too simple. But for these 3 strangers, this setting of trust is the most fatal. Yejing asked himself, can he completely trust Guangtu and Qiluo? Obviously not. Who knows if they will vote for him? What if he votes for himself and someone else votes for him, then he will be the eliminated one, right? Similarly, if you change your perspective, the other two people will think the same way. As you think about it, a crisis of trust arises. There are two sentences before entering the pyramid. At least 3 people go in, and at least 2 people come out. This may be the place. The countdown is ticking, time is slowly passing. Yejing frowns, stares at the red template with a serious expression, and falls into deep thought. Not quite right. If that's the case, wouldn't this level be a matter of luck? If you vote for someone else, wouldn't it be a matter of luck that the eliminated person is someone else, not yourself? The teachers in the Demon Academy will definitely not ask such luck questions. There must be something missing. Yejing exhaled deeply, forced his slightly irritable mood down, and thought about it. Who should I vote for this time? Qiluo. No, Qiluo gave him water in the deserted desert before he was sure whether he was an enemy or a friend. It is reasonable to vote for her. Bald. This is an option. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed through Yejing's mind, opening his mind like a bolt from the blue. Huh, I understand. Yejing shook his head vigorously a few times, and the tangled expression on his face retreated. He looked at the red template in front of him and gently clicked the word death under his avatar. Do you vote for Yejing? Yes. Complete, waiting for judgment, countdown to 14 seconds. Haven't you finished voting yet? You must be in a dilemma, right? Yejing thought secretly that apart from him, the only one who could be so tangled was Qiluo. I think she hasn't come to her senses yet. In fact, this difficulty is very simple, but there are hidden traps in it. I hope she can remember it. When there was less than a minute left in the countdown, an electronic sound suddenly sounded in Yejing's ears. Voting is completed, judgment begins. It begins. Yejing's heart tightened, and a layer of sweat appeared on his forehead at some point. Judgment in progress. Yejing 1 vote, Qiluo 1 vote, Baldi 1 vote, all 3 of them 1 vote, no one was eliminated. Pass. Huh. When he heard that all 3 of them had the same vote, Yejing took a deep breath, his nervous expression relaxed, and his heart, which had been in his throat, returned to its original position. Damn. I didn't expect such a simple thing to be so exciting. Teacher of the Demon Academy, you are really good. Don't let me know who asked this question. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. This time, I, Yejing, will remember it. This time, I should be considered to have been fooled. This is not a test at all. It is just a small prank at best, but this prank is a bit too big. I won't talk about the monthly ticket, but give me some recommendation votes. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 229. After passing the level, the closed iron wall trembled slightly for a few times, and then flew back to the top, releasing the 3 people who were isolated. After seeing the others, Yejing turned his head and looked at Qiluo. Both of them saw a trace of relief in each other's eyes. The bet was right. What's going on? What's going on? What is the second level for? Before Yejing could speak, he heard the bald man next to him yelling in confusion. He still didn't understand what the second level was for. After all, he couldn't read. Ignoring the bald man, Qiluo looked at Yejing and asked curiously, you voted for yourself, right? Why? Yejing smiled, didn't you vote for yourself too? In the end, you who had been struggling all the time still chose to trust others. I just don't know who to vote for. Qiluo hugged her arms, snorted, and said with a slightly raised head, looking proud. Yes, yes, me too. Yejing saw it all, but didn't point it out. However, After this stage, the relationship between strangers has taken a small step forward. What are you talking about? Explain it to me. The two of them were playing dumb, and the bald man was confused. He couldn't help but yell at Yejing. Yejing explained helplessly, "Did you click on the word under your own avatar, and you didn't know what the word was?" The bald man nodded blankly, "Yes, after entering, I saw my own avatar, and I didn't know what it said, so I just clicked on myself." This is exactly what Yejing judged. Yejing said, "That's right, this level is like a prank. If Kilogo and I had a little bit of brains, there would be no elimination. It was arranged from the beginning." Baldy can't read. When he sees his own avatar, his first reaction is definitely to click on himself under the premise of lack of information. After saying that, Yejing paused, glanced at Kilogo, and continued, "As for Kilogo, I don't know much, but she chose to give water to me and Baldy, two strangers, in the unknown desert, which means that she is not a bad person, and the possibility of voting for others is very small. In this case, Baldy will definitely vote for me. Kilogo is very likely to choose to believe others and vote for herself. The most critical vote is here. When I choose to vote for myself, this level will be passed." Kilogo seemed unaccustomed to being praised so directly. A blush appeared on her pretty face and turned her head away. After guessing the deep meaning, this level is very simple. So what is written in it? Baldy was still confused. "You can't understand it with your IQ, so I won't say anything." "Don't. I'm very curious." In the midst of the noise, the Sphinx in the front spoke again, and a voice without emotion came out. "After passing the second level, the third level begins. After completing the third level, an escape passage will appear." As soon as the voice fell, a red light shot out from the Sphinx's eyes, and new words reappeared on the answer board. Level 3, Courage. When humans face a crisis, courage is always an indispensable point for a Jedi comeback. Wait. Just when the third level was about to start, Yejing suddenly shouted loudly, and at the same time, he took out his golden and glittering local tycoon version of the golden knife. "What's wrong?" Yejing suddenly took out his weapon, which made the two people next to him stunned, and asked. Yejing sneered, "I think there is no need to do this third level at all." "What do you mean?" Chi Luo frowned and asked in a low voice. The cold voice of the Sphinx was also heard, "Those who give up the third level will be deemed to have forfeited and will be eliminated directly." "Forfeit?" Yejing shouted, raised the golden knife and pointed it directly at the Sphinx. "This Sphinx was made by the teacher in the Demon Academy to play a trick on us. This thing will never appear in the Desert Illusion. I was suspicious from the first level. This is a reference assessment of the Demon Academy. Under normal circumstances, who would ask such a childish question as reciting the periodic table? The second level is the same. It's a complete prank. The teacher in the Demon Academy is joking with us again." After hearing what Yejing said, Chi Luo couldn't help but ponder. Her beautiful eyes turned and looked at the Sphinx. What he said made sense. However, although it made sense, Kiluo was still a little worried and said, "Even if it's a prank, isn't there only one level left? It's over now, let's not make trouble anymore." Yejing didn't like being teased like this, so he took out his weapon and pointed it directly at the Sphinx, while Kiluo focused on safety, thinking that even if it was a prank, it didn't matter. Anyway, there was only one level left. Just when the two disagreed, suddenly, the Sphinx interrupted. "Yes, yes, yes. Isn't there only one level left? I'll let you go after you pass the last level." The tone of the voice that had no emotion before changed, and a panic tone could be heard. At the same time, just after the Sphinx finished speaking, a drop of sweat appeared out of thin air on its forehead without any sign. The sweat made of stone hung on the right side of its face like an emoticon. Yejing, Kiluo, Bald. Confirmed. This panicked tone and the emoticon like Shihan clearly show that there is someone controlling the Sphinx. Silently, Kilogo took out a water blue rapier. The rapier was only as wide as a finger, and water was flowing on it. Yejing held the golden knife, and Kilogo held the rapier. They walked to the front of the Sphinx at the same time. The clearance is probably behind this, right? We'll know after we tear it down. The bald man didn't understand at first, but when Yejing and Kilogo stood in front of the Sphinx with weapons, he understood and was overjoyed. Are you going to smash it? I'm good at it. The three of them were ready to attack, and the Sphinx spoke in a panic again. What do you want to do? Rebellion. Do you want to be eliminated? What are you doing? Smash you. Yejing sneered. Others had played 2 levels, and it was time to vent his anger. He took the lead and chopped the Sphinx without hesitation. Crack. With one cut, the broken stones flew and a deep cut was left on the leg of the Sphinx. Kilogo also had an angry look on her face. She slashed the thin sword across the air, and the wet water flow cut through the thigh of the Sphinx. A second later, she cut off a stone leg neatly. It was too easy. This is just an ordinary stone. No. It took the three of them less than a minute to cut the Sphinx into pieces, revealing the dark passage behind the wall. Humble author, please vote online. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 230. After walking through the dark passage, the road was calm. There were no traps or tunnels, and even the forks could not be seen. They went straight and followed the light in front of them. The three of them walked out of the pyramid. When Yejing and his team stepped out of the pyramid, the row of pyramids that were originally solid suddenly became illusory and disappeared in the blink of an eye, as if they had never appeared, just like a mirage. Sure enough, they are playing tricks on us. Yejing looked at the empty front with a speechless face, and he couldn't help but feel angry. He didn't know who was so extravagant and made it fancy to satisfy his own bad taste. The water illusion should have waves. The fire illusion should be a volcanic eruption and magma eruption. The gold illusion can drop knives in the sky. The wood illusion creates a large Amazon forest. The earth illusion is the collapse of the sky and the end of the world. What will the desert illusion be? Yejing thought so. Anyway, it couldn't be something as stupid as the pyramids and the Sphinx. The pyramids blocking the way ahead disappeared, and the road ahead was opened. Yejing was still thinking about what difficulties would hinder them ahead, but suddenly he felt someone patted his shoulder. What's wrong? Yejing looked up and saw that the honest-looking bald man was staring at his back with a horrified look, and his fingers were trembling. You, look at it. What the hell? Speak properly, Yejing said in a deep voice, and subconsciously turned his head to look behind him. It would have been better if he didn't look at it. When he looked at it, he was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. He finally knew what the difficulties in the desert illusion were. Hundreds of meters behind them, several tornadoes covered the sky, rolled up high-speed wind and sand, and swept towards the three of them with the momentum of destroying everything. These tornadoes were connected one by one, inseparable and complementary. The more they moved, the more sand and dust they rolled up, and the volume was gradually increasing. The sky was covered with sandstorms, and darkness was coming. The sandstorm with a strong smell of death was rushing towards Yejing and the other three. Run! Yejing's whole body trembled suddenly, and he turned around and yelled, wanting to remind Guangtu and Kiluo, but he found that there was no one around him. They had jumped onto the desert giant who was waiting in place and fled towards the distant wind. Wait for me. Come up. The desert giant paused for only 1 second, and Yejing took advantage of this gap and jumped on it. Run! How could there be no sandstorm tornado in a desert? The tornado rotated and moved at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. The huge wind force and attraction made Yejing unstable even if it was hundreds of meters away. He grabbed the desert giant's shoulder hard, fearing that he would fall down accidentally. The fine sand from the sandstorm tornado was blessed by several forces, and the originally fine sand was like a boulder, hitting him with great pain. When the sky and the earth changed color, Yejing and his companions were terrified. Facing the power of nature, they could not resist. In front of the sky-covering sandstorm, they were as small as a grain of sand. Hurry up! Make it speed up! It's going to be caught up. How to speed up? The bald man said anxiously. The desert giant, which was originally just a tool for traveling, might run faster than the three of them, but it could never catch up with a terrifying giant like a tornado. Don't you have a good knife in your hand? Go down and chop the tornado. Yejing almost cursed when he heard this. If I had that kind of power, why would I come to school? I would have gone to kill the dragon long ago. The tornado with desert sands all over the sky, it is estimated that only a strong man in the realm of destiny can chop it with one knife. He is still far away. The wind behind them was getting closer and closer. When the tornado just appeared, it was still 500 meters away from them. Perhaps it wanted them to run for a while. But after just a few minutes, the 500-meter distance between the two sides was reduced to 300 meters, and the distance was getting closer and closer. In less than 10 minutes, they would be completely sucked into the tornado. The scene of being chased made Yejing feel very familiar. A sense of powerlessness surged in his heart, and he wanted to cry but had no tears. Some time ago, he and Gray were chased by the extraordinary monster white whale. This time they were chased by the world-destroying tornado. It was really bad luck. At that time, Gray still had a pair of wings and could fly into the sky, but now it is even worse. He only has the two legs of the desert giant. They are both mounts. Why is the difference so big? Thinking of this, Yejing suddenly yelled, "Transform! Didn't you create the desert giant? Let it transform." The bald man looked flustered and was at a loss. How can it transform? It can't. The armor hero can transform, so why can't it? Either grow a pair of wings or two more legs. The faster the better. Yejing was quick-witted. The desert giant was not a living creature. It was just made by the bald man using the sand all over the ground. Since it was made, it must be able to be transformed. The bald man said anxiously, but changing the body requires raw material sand. I can't stop and get materials on the spot, right? His brain was not very smart. At the critical moment, Chi Luo, who had been observing the distance of the tornado behind him, suddenly interrupted, "Tear it down. Aren't the arms useless? Tear it down and add 2 legs. 2 add 2 equal 4, the speed can be doubled. Is this how you multiply your speed?" At this point, the bald man understood even if he was dumb. He nodded repeatedly and stretched out his calloused hands towards the thick arms of the desert giant, and a faint spiritual energy surged out. With the bald man's action, the 2 useless arms of the desert giant fell off directly and turned into a large piece of yellow sand. "Press on the lower body, press on the lower body," he murmured in his mouth, controlling the yellow sand to flow to the lower body of the desert giant. The speed was very fast, and 2 legs were formed in the blink of an eye. Looking at the 2 freshly baked giant legs, the bald man was overjoyed. "Done. Isn't this faster?" The bald man was overjoyed, but Yejing almost cried, "Brother, have you ever seen anyone with 4 legs side by side? Press the wrong position. Let the desert giant lie down first, and press its limbs like a wolf." The desert giant with 4 legs side by side made Chi Luo laugh out loud, and the sense of crisis and tension was greatly cleared. After working for a while, When the tornado was less than 200 meters away, the living desert giant was transformed by the bald man into a deformed creature lying on the ground with 4 legs. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 231. Go, Pikachu. The future is ahead. Pa. Sand is a very good raw material. As long as a brainless person uses it, he will make a weirdo. Although the new version of the mount is a bit ugly, its speed has been improved. It gradually forms a balance of speed with the tornado behind it, and the distance between the two sides is no longer shortened. At this time, the 3 nervous and anxious people secretly breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. They have come here. If they are eliminated, it will be a great shame. Suddenly, Kilogo pointed to the front and said in surprise, "Look, is there an exit?" Yejing looked in the direction of her finger. Less than a kilometer ahead, there was a very conspicuous purple portal, quietly parked on the ground, waiting for them. Finally finished. Yejing sighed secretly. He didn't even enter the main gate of the Demon Academy, but he was confused by these 2 levels. He really didn't know what would be waiting for them after leaving this desert illusion. Less than a kilometer away, in just a few minutes, they arrived in front of the purple portal and jumped off the Sebusiang Mount. Behind them, the sky-covering tornado wrapped in hurricane and dust roared non-stop. It is estimated that in less than 30 seconds, they will all be swept up to the sky. Regardless of the crisis behind him, the bald man rushed to the purple portal with a happy face and reached out to touch it. The moment he touched the purple portal, his face froze instantly, and the original joy disappeared in an instant, with an expression of despair. Yejing and Kilogo walked over quickly, frowned and asked, "What's wrong? Get out quickly." The bald man took a step back and said with a sad face, "The door is closed." "What? What?" As soon as the bald man finished speaking, Yejing and Kilogo were shocked and said in unison, "What should we do?" "The tornado is coming soon." Kilogo jumped up anxiously, spinning in circles on the spot, racking his brains to think of a way to escape the illusion. "Shit." Yejing cursed inwardly, "I knew it wouldn't end so easily. I gave you a door, but it's still closed. Isn't this disgusting?" There was no time to think about it. Yejing pushed Kilogo, who was spinning in circles, aside, and said in a serious and cold voice, "Since it's closed, then chop it open." He took out the golden knife directly, chopped it without hesitation, and the golden light flashed, and chopped it on the purple portal. A deep purple knife mark appeared on the surface of the portal, giving the 3 people hope to get out of despair. "Don't stop, don't stop. Hurry up." Yejing also knew that he couldn't stop. He gritted his teeth, moved his body slightly, and his whole body aura suddenly burst out. The blade of the golden knife shot out a 3-foot golden light, sharp and sharp. One knife after another, faster. Faster. Yejing used all his strength, and his arm swinging the golden sword did not even have a gap or pause. He swung the sword and then slashed it on the portal with his backhand. He had already omitted the action of drawing the sword back. Now it was a race against time. He didn't know how far he had to attack to break the portal. He could only swing the sword continuously and not give up. Yejing had already regarded the portal in front of him as the teacher of the Demon Academy. These dozens of swords seemed to be not slashing on the portal, but on the teacher. The other 2 were not just watching. Only when the 3 of them worked together could they get out of the desert illusion. This was the final meaning of this level. Kilogo looked at Yejing, who was swinging the sword like a madman, gritted her silver teeth, turned her body, and faced the huge sandstorm. The dark wind blew, and the dust flew everywhere. After Kilogo exhaled deeply, a trace of determination flashed in her beautiful eyes. She took a step forward, crossed her hands in front of her chest, and a faint water blue array seal appeared out of thin air. The moment the seal appeared, unparalleled water breath rushed towards her like a rolling dragon. Huge energy gathered in front of the seal, and several waves tightly surrounded Kilo, as if dancing like a water god. The sandstorm tornado was already close at hand, less than 30 meters away, and the huge attraction made her petite body shaky. At this moment, Kilo suddenly opened her eyes, her white hands made seals on her chest, and water breath like a sea tide rushed up to the sky. Water curtain all over the sky. A delicate cry sounded, and the sea tide waves seemed to have come to life, forming a thin water mist as high as tens of meters, bending and isolating the sandstorm tornado and the three of them. The water curtain was swaying, resisting the huge tornado very hard, and water drops fell from the sky like a downpour, as if the water curtain would break in the next second. Kilo was holding the formation seal, and the water spirit in her body was draining away at a great speed. Her rosy face was now pale and bloodless. She gritted her teeth and said, "Hurry up. I can't hold on for long." "I know that too." Yejing took the time out of his busy schedule to reply, his eyes were red, like a madman. The golden light flashed, and the knife light flashed one after another. The portal was almost smashed, but the door could not be opened, which made Yejing very angry. "UTM, open the door. What are you trying to kill yourself?" Poof. Suddenly, Kilo spurted out a mouthful of blood, and the water curtain scattered all over the sky, and a terrifying and shocking sandstorm swept in. "I can't hold on anymore. Open it for me." Yejing's eyes widened, and he roared in his heart. He gathered all his strength and chopped the portal with a ferocious face. "Trigger the double attack, this attack triples the damage." I knew that the probability of double attack was secretly adjusted by the sand sculpture author. 3 times the damage, this sword has the power of a dragon and a tiger. With one strike, the closed door of the portal fell down. Yejing was overjoyed. "It's open. Let's go." Soon enough, before Yejing got into the portal, he didn't forget to grab the weak Kilo and fled into the portal with the 3 bald heads. In the flash of the portal, the figures of the 3 people slowly faded away, and they were about to leave the desert fantasy. Kilo wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, with a weak face but a smile in her eyes. She glanced at her and said, "Silly man, next time we meet, my sister will teach you how to read." After saying that, she glanced at Yejing again and said with a smile, "Next time we meet, I will give you a drink of my long concentrated water. See you at the Demon Academy." As soon as she finished speaking, her shadow disappeared. "Is it holy water that has been condensed for a long time?" Yejing thought to himself, and then before he went out, he patted the shiny head of his bald head and said, "Brother will teach you how to read next time." Then he left the confused bald head and left the desert fantasy land. "I've never been able to read." After the darkness passed, Yejing regained his consciousness. After slowly opening his eyes, he had come out of the desert fantasy and returned to the familiar black train. He glanced around and saw that there were only 3 people left in the entire carriage. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 232. Originally, when Yejing entered the illusion, there were 7 people in the carriage, but now, when he came out, there were only 3 people left. Yejing, Gray, and the other person selling information. The other 4 were all eliminated. Besides him, Gray and another person were still in a coma and had not yet woken up. Yejing looked out the window. The pure black train was still moving slowly, very slowly. The scenery and buildings outside the window were unobstructed. Now he should be waiting for all the reference students to come out of the illusion. The pure black train is traveling around the entire 3rd district, making it easier for the students who have woken up to understand this huge demonic school district. After Yejing waited for a while, 2 confused sounds rang in his ears, and Gray woke up at the same time as the person selling the information. After Gray regained consciousness, he vaguely opened his eyes. He looked around first. When he saw Yejing next to him, his eyes suddenly filled with tears. He hugged her with tears in his eyes as if he was seeing a relative. Lived Yejing. I'm so hard. Yejing pushed Gray away mercilessly and said with disgust, it's not difficult, whoever said it. I almost didn't come back. Gray wiped away his tears, gritted his teeth and said fiercely, did you know? I met 2 pig teammates. They are a bunch of losers. Yejing asked curiously, what kind of environment did you go to? When Gray heard Yejing's question, a look of fear suddenly appeared on his expression, and he said in a trembling voice, fire fantasy, my god. The ground is full of magma. A volcano erupts every 3 steps, and a flame shoots up into the sky every 2 steps. It's almost, I grilled it into mutton kebabs. Fire environment? Magma eruption? Can't you fly? Are you still afraid of this? Yejing asked doubtfully. You shouldn't, it stands to reason that Gray can fly to an unlimited height, wouldn't it be fine as long as he flies to a place where the lava cannot spray him? Why are you still being roasted by the fire? Gray was about to burst into tears. I want to too. But the illusion doesn't allow it. No matter how high I fly, the magma will spray higher than me. It's too difficult for me. When he said this, he seemed to have thought of some hateful scene, and his expression became fierce. Furthermore, I don't know which SB assigned me a giant brainless task. Let me fly with 2 pig teammates, and one of them, I can't leave him alone. My god, I'm flying with 2 boars. Yejing. It's probably another prank by the teachers of the Demon Academy. Are they too idle recently, which makes the teachers feel bored, so they use reference students to have some fun? Maybe many students now have grudges against their teachers, right? Maybe after entering the Demon Academy, there will be a riot and confrontation between students and teachers. If that's the case, please call me. Yejing patted Gray on the shoulder and comforted him, be good, it's okay. It's all over. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. 10 years are not too late for a gentleman. There are still many days to come. Just remember today's shame. Gray nodded heavily, indicating that he would keep today's events in mind. If he is unable to do so now, he would settle the accounts later. Sitting opposite the two of them, Bai Xiaosheng, who was selling information, lost his calm appearance after being exposed to the environment. He lowered his head and remained silent. He didn't know what he encountered in the illusion, which made him autistic. Seeing 2 people in the same situation as himself, Yejing sighed secretly. It was really difficult. At this moment, a loud whistle sounded, and along with the sound of the brakes, the pure black train shuddered for a while and then slowly stopped. We've arrived. It seems that all the reference students have come out of the illusion. The door of the pure black train opened, Yejing and Gray got off the train, and there were seniors outside the train guiding them where to go next. Yejing and the 2 followed the guidance. Thousands of reference students still walked out of the trains. After this level passed, there were still thousands of people alive. It seemed that there were still many people who had the ability and luck. Following the large army, he arrived at the current destination. In front of him was a towering purple tower. The tower was cylindrical, with a faint white stream of light flowing on the surface. It should be a defensive formation of unknown type. Sealed to protect this kind of tower from impact. The top of the purple tower is a mushroom-shaped watchtower. Except for the top and 4 pillars, the rest is wrapped in synthetic transparent glass. I think from this watchtower, I can have a panoramic view of the entire Magic City. This purple tower is the central tower of the Demon Academy's school district, and it is also the central tower that monitors and manages the entire Demon Academy. All senior officials of the entire Demon Academy work in this tower, or are waiting for instructions. 1 floor below the top observation deck is the office of the director of the Demon Academy. Following the large troops from the reference academy, Yejing took Gray's hand. It was Yuxiu who walked in, and now all the reference students were staying in the first floor hall of the central tower, waiting for the next session. The entire hall on the first floor was full of people, and there was a lot of discussion, but no one caused trouble. Few people who could reach this point are fools. Making trouble in the devil's courtyard is a sign of being impatient. When everyone was in place, two coughs with amplification effects came from the front and spread throughout the hall, attracting everyone's attention. From the hollow platform at the front of the hall, a middle-aged man with slightly white temples, thin body, and dark eyes walked out. He looked like he had not been resting well. He was middle-aged but had gray hair. He was obviously overdrawn. Vitality. The middle-aged man's steps were very steady, even rhythmic. Between one step and two steps, it seemed that he was in sync with everyone's heartbeats. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on everyone's heart, as heavy as 1,000 pounds. The middle-aged man walked from the backstage to the hollow stage in the hall, only 10 steps away, but in these 10 steps, he unified the heartbeat frequency of all the reference students. Horror. When he walked to the center, he glanced at the reference students lightly. In an instant, a pressure like a huge mountain pressed on them, making it difficult to breathe. In an instant, the hall, which was originally chaotic and full of discussions, became quiet, without any sound. Cough cough. The middle-aged man seemed to be in poor health, and coughed twice again. These two coughs were like a huge stone hitting everyone's heart, causing their faces to turn pale at the least and their hearts to stop at the worst. There is no doubt that with such terrifying strength, he must be a high-level member of the Demon Academy. After a few seconds of silence, the middle-aged man slowly spoke. "Hello everyone, I am the Dean of the Demon Academy, Nangang Bupi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 233. What rank is the Dean of Studies? Yejing roughly calculated that the Demon Academy has a dean, 2 vice-deans, and 2 secretaries, and then what? Forget it, don't think about it, I don't know what the Dean of Studies ranks in the Demon Academy. But no matter what, it must be quite high. This doesn't even count the freshmen, but the Dean of Studies Nangang Bupi has already come, which also shows how much the Demon Academy values the freshmen every year. Of course, it is impossible for the Dean to come in person. The old Dean is busy all day long, how could he come to preside over such a small occasion? Being able to send a Dean of Studies means that they are very fond of them. Dean of Studies Nangang Bupi looked solemn and dignified, looking at everyone and slowly said, "Every year, the number of freshmen in the Demon Academy is not fixed and has no limit. Whether it is 100 or 1000, the Demon Academy has the ability and resources to accept and train them. But the Demon Academy has the ability to accept and train, which does not mean that everyone is qualified to enter." After 2 heavy opening remarks, Nangang Bupi paused for a few seconds and said a series of data. Last year, the Demon Academy had 13,000 students registering for the exam, and 253 students enrolled. The enrollment rate of about 50 to 1 is not high, nor is it low. But these 253 students were allocated resources with a total value of more than 500 million spirit stones by the Demon Academy in 1 year. 253 people were allocated resources worth more than 500 million spirit stones. This sentence instantly caused a huge response, and the whole hall was in an uproar, with exclamations one after another. 500 million. What a huge number. It is so huge that people from small families and small forces can't even dream of it. But these 500 million were allocated to 253 people by the Demon Academy. Even if they were evenly distributed, everyone could get millions of spirit stones. 500 million. Yejing was also shocked, and waves surged in his heart. If all the 500 million were given to him, he would turn around and throw them into the furnace. Maybe he could go up to the sky and slay dragons the next day. My God! Did the Demon Academy allocate such a huge amount of resources to freshmen in 1 year? Isn't this too rich? No wonder so many people try their best to get into the Demon Academy every year. Once you enter the Demon Academy, you don't have to worry about the cultivation resources at all. The Academy almost covers everything. It was just this number that ignited the hearts of everyone present. The blazing fire burned and boiled in the eyes of the students, and the same idea rose in their hearts. At all costs, you must enter the Demon Academy. For money, I will definitely enter the Demon Academy. Yejing silently made up his mind. There was no big force behind him to provide cultivation resources. Everything had to be earned by himself, and the Demon Academy was the first step for him to fight hard. This sentence ignited everyone. After giving the students some time to buffer, the Dean of Teaching, Nangang Bupi, gently pressed his hands, signaled them to be quiet, and then continued. Resources are inexhaustible in the Demon Academy, but what else is there besides resources? And status? After that, Nangang Bupi clapped his hands, and with the applause, a young man in a white robe with a smile on his face slowly walked out from the backstage, Jizikiu. Jizikiu stood beside Nangang Bupi, bowed slightly, and then quietly waited for instructions. Nangang Bupi pointed at Jizikiu and said in a deep voice, "This is Jizikiu, the second-year head of the Demon Academy. It is a very ordinary identity, but he also has an unusual identity, that is, the Blue Star Federation Council, the 109th Director. This is the status." Some people have already known the news and looked at Jizikiu with envy, but most of them are unaware. When Jizikiu's identity as the 109th Director was exposed, the students who were studying at the bottom were even more in an uproar. When did the Federation have such a young director? Oh my God! How old is he to be a director? In the future, won't he be able to sit in the position of permanent director at least? Are the seniors of the Demon Academy so terrifying? Respected by thousands of people. Yejing looked at Jizikiu, who was smiling plainly, with envy and jealousy, thinking that you are the protagonist, right? Two big pieces of news hit everyone's heart in succession, arousing their unparalleled fighting spirit. After Nangang Bupi finished throwing the big news, he waved at Jizikiu, indicating that he could leave, and let Jizikiu come up to stimulate this group of students. After the big news was thrown, Nangang Bupi coughed twice, and the silent sound waves vibrated throughout the hall and hit everyone's heart. The Demon Academy can give you resources and status, but why do you let the Demon Academy give it to you? Nangang Bupi suddenly changed his tone, raised his voice by several points, and said sternly. There is no free dedication in this world, no pie in the sky. You have to give others what you want others to give you, or show what you can give in the future. Nangang Bupi, the Dean of Teaching, knew this very well. He glanced at the somewhat unconvinced reference students and said coldly, "Do you really think that the resources of the Demon Academy are given for free? Do you really think that Jizikiu's status as a director is given for free? If you think so, I will refute it here. No. No. The resources of the Demon Academy are earned by the students themselves, and Jizikiu's status as a director is earned by him at the cost of his life." After saying this, he seemed to recall something bad, and his emotions were a little agitated. It took him a long time to calm down his slightly flushed face, and then he continued to talk about what he should tell these reference students. Last year, of the 253 students who were allocated 500 million, do you know how many are still alive? 193. 60 died on the road ahead. The resources of the Demon Academy are handed over to the Federation by all the people of Blue Star, and the Federation then allocates them to the Demon Academy. All the resources are given by the people. and the students who get the resources from the Demon Academy must do things for humanity. This is the first point that is beyond doubt, and it is also a point that you must remember deeply in your heart. Unlike the previous two explosive materials, Nangong Bupi's words were like a basin of cold water poured on the hot hearts of the crowd, waking them up from the temptation of the previous words. Yes, that's right, nothing is given for free. You have to pay for what you get, this is the rule. In 1 year, 60 people died out of the 253 people, turning into cold data to warn the rest of the people. Although you are not students of the Demon Academy yet, and there will be a large number of eliminated students, I must say these words in advance. After entering the Demon Academy, what awaits you is not a peaceful practice, but another cruel road, another road of life and death. If you are timid, it is not too late now, turn around and get out. Give some votes, make the data look better. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 234. There is no free lunch in this world, and this is not a peaceful world. Don't think that being a student means stability, and don't think that the academy is a pure land without conflict. You stand out from thousands of people, and you have to pay a corresponding price with rich resources, and this price may cost you your life in the worst case. The Federation and the Academy will not support a group of wastes who can only practice for no reason, especially the Demon Academy, one of the 5 major academies on Blue Star. Relative reputation must bear a relative mission. The words of the Dean hit deeply in the hearts of all the reference students present, very heavy, and the originally burning, fanatical hearts were completely extinguished. In 1 year, their seniors from the previous class divided resources worth 500 million spirit stones, but paid 60 young and fresh lives. For children like them who have never seen monsters and aliens, what a horrible exchange. In their hearts, a thought vaguely arose: if they entered the Demon Academy, will they die? The word death was very far away from them just a moment ago, as if it had no real feeling. But now, it seems to be very close. As long as you step into the Demon Academy, you will walk with death. No wonder the Dean of Teaching said this. In addition to dispelling the idea of many people entering the Demon Academy, he also told them that once they enter the Academy, no one will treat them as children. Once you enter the Academy, you are a warrior. A warrior belonging to Blue Star. There are nearly 2,000 reference students in the entire Central Tower Hall. Some of them have no expression and are unmoved, some have tangled expressions, some have fear in their eyes, but still stand here with their teeth gritted, and some have trembling legs but clenched their fists, unwilling to leave. Maybe you will die, but it's not you who will die, isn't it better? Having come to this point, who would be willing to leave? Nangong Bupi waited for them for 5 minutes. After the decision was made, no one chose to leave. This made his deep expression gradually ease. Although he was still expressionless, he was much gentler than before. After a long silence, Nangong Bupi opened his mouth and slowly said, "These are not to scare you, but the Academy will not send students to die. This point must be stated in advance. Also, fighting for humanity is not just talk in the Demon Academy. It must be done with actual actions, but it also depends on your personal strength. It turns out that we are not sent to die. It's really scary." Hearing him say this, everyone below breathed a sigh of relief and secretly wiped the cold sweat on their heads. To be honest, they were really scared by Nangong Bupi's words. People die when they open their mouths and close their mouths. Who can stand this? Fortunately, it's not that they just go up and give their heads. As for the Demon Academy, these reference students don't know much information, very little. The Demon Academy is one of the 5 special academies on Blue Star. The other 4 are Imperial City Academy, Border City Academy, Forest Domain Forest Academy, and Sea Domain Sea Academy. Although each academy is called an academy, it is more appropriate to say that it is a special forces training base. The Demon Academy and the Imperial Academy are responsible for guarding the Blue Star's homeland, and only a few have the mission to go out of Blue Star. The Border City Academy is exactly the same as the Special Forces Academy. It is also the academy with the highest mortality rate. It guards the edge of Blue Star. All the students in it are warriors. They are fighting with alien races all the time. Students who choose Border City Academy are very brave. Next to the forest domain is the sand domain, which was occupied by Warcraft decades ago and completely fell. Now it has been officially renamed the Warcraft domain. As the Forest Academy closest to the Warcraft domain, all the practical projects of the students in it are almost related to Warcraft, so the students of the Forest Academy are also called monster hunters. As the only floating land in the Sea Academy has only one kind of enemy, that is, the monsters and aliens in the deep sea. The Dean of the Sea Academy has fought with the Sea King who rules the entire sea several times, but he has not gained any advantage and has returned in disgrace many times. The areas that the 5 special academies of Blue Star are responsible for are very obvious, but compared with the other 3 academies, the tasks of the Demon Academy and the Emperor Academy are relatively easy. After all, most of the enemies they face are of the same kind, except for the dark forces hidden in Blue Star, and the interstellar pirates wandering among the fragments of various planets. After a few minutes of silence, after everyone has strengthened their faith, Nangong Bupi glanced at everyone, nodded secretly, and said lightly, "Since no one has left, then prepare to enter the final assessment of the Demon Academy. Don't think that the Demon Academy is troublesome or troublesome. This is also for your personal safety. If you are too weak to enter the Demon Academy, then only death is waiting for you." After speaking, he suddenly raised one hand high, raised his head slightly, and shouted to the top of the empty hall. "Open, test space." As soon as the voice fell, before everyone could react, a purple light suddenly descended from the first floor of the hall, covering everyone present. What happened? Yejing's face changed slightly, and he moved his body, but suddenly found that the people around him suddenly disappeared, and he was the only one left there. Is this a virtual space? Unaware. He only saw a purple light falling from the sky, and then the whole person was transferred to another virtual space, leaving only himself. What did the dean say before? Test space? What to test? Yejing was confused. If he was alone, what else needed to be tested? Just then, above the empty space, a huge translucent display suddenly appeared, on which the rules of this test space were written. 1. In this space, multiple tests will be conducted, including physical strength, speed, destructive power, mental resistance, and other items. 2. Each item will be scored, with scores of S, A, B, C, and D. Those with a comprehensive score of A will enter the final exam, and the rest will be eliminated. 3. Please don't hide your strength and do your best in the exam. What's going on? Yejing looked at the display and was a little confused and at a loss. I'm ready for a big fight, and you're doing this to me? I've taken off my pants, and you're bigger than me? The last hurdle to enter the Demon Academy, Yejing thought it was extremely difficult, with 9 in and 1 out, but who knew that after such a big show, it was just a very simple physical fitness test, which caught him off guard. Also, the second item on the monitor also confused him. Only those with an overall score of A can enter the final exam. If none of them get A, wouldn't they all be eliminated?